Welcome back, guys, to a new episode of the Dual Threat Podcast. My name is Logan McCormick. I'm with my co-host Michael Hale today. I'm filling in for Jacob Pichette in his absence. Today we're going to be talking about the Sunday football games yesterday. We're going to be recapping them all. Before we start, make sure you follow us on Twitter, on TikTok, on YouTube, all the above. Make sure you hit that subscribe button. We really appreciate it. Let's dive into it.
Awesome. The first game we're going to be going over is the Broncos versus the Falcons. I called this one, so did Logan. We agreed that the Falcons were a better team than their record showed, and it showed here today. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, it was a good game. Came down to the wire. We finally saw the rookie Jerry Jeudy emerge as a number one wide receiver, as we always thought he would. It just took a little bit longer than we expected. He had 7 receptions, 130 yards, and a touchdown. And Drew Lock playing pretty well, actually, which is a good thing to see as well.
Yeah, I agree. Drew Lock came out slinging the ball. I mean, he had 48 pass attempts, only completed 25, so that percentage isn't too good. But, I mean, he was still able to get 313 yards and 2 touchdowns. So he came out slinging again, throwing some deep balls like he usually does. And but, I mean, Matt Ryan and the Atlanta offense just did what they normally do. I mean, you look at the stats, and they're pretty similar. And I just think that Denver wasn't able to start off strong. They only had 6 total points until they got into the fourth quarter and then tried to make another late comeback like they did the week before against the Chargers and ended up scoring 21 in the fourth. But just against a on-fire offense like Atlanta, you can't really wait that long to score. And so I think it was just a little too late, and the Broncos weren't able to get a win here.
Yeah, that Denver defense, they're really missing that old, mid 2010s defense they used to have as they continue to keep giving up a lot of points.
Yeah, I agree. And, I mean, yeah, like you just said, you give up 34 points. It's hard to win a football game, especially if your offense isn't able to score in the first quarter. But like I said, they still scored 21 in the fourth, which seems to be the Broncos' game plan, is just to score late, because same thing they did against the Chargers. And if you keep doing that, you're not ever going to get above 3 wins in the NFL. So they just need to come out a little bit stronger, and if their defense can maybe try and hold someone to below 30 points, I feel like the Broncos could be a way better team, but as of now, it doesn't look too great. So
Yeah.
I guess we both had very mutual points from that one. The next game we're going to go on to is the Seahawks versus the Bills. This one was a little surprising for me, but give my computer just a second to load. So Buffalo actually came out with the win on this one. I predicted the Seahawks to win.
As did I.
Yeah, I think that was pretty much I think that was a very similar pick for a lot of people, because the weeks before, you just see how good Russell Wilson was running that offense, especially with Tyler Lockett and DJ Metcalf. I was a little surprised. David Moore came out and was out receiving Tyler Lockett. So did Travis Homer and Jacob Hollister. So Tyler Lockett was on the downside this week, but we have talked about
in a row, yeah.
we have talked about that before, where pretty early on you can kind of see who the game plan is going to flow through on this Seattle team, whether it's DK Metcalf or Tyler Lockett, and for some reason they can never seem to be doing well at the same time. So it's a little frustrating as a fantasy owner, but I guess if it's working for your team, it's working for your team. But yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, it was super surprising to me to see Russell Wilson, the MVP candidate, have 4 turnovers in this game. In a close game, it wasn't too close the whole time, but it ended up being decently close. They really could have used those extra 4 possessions. And Josh Allen, a big note from this game is Josh Allen played really well since for the first time since week 3 or something. He's been in the slump lately, but finally turned it around, which was good to see.
Yeah, Jacob and I were talking about that actually in the preview. We were saying last week Josh Allen looked like he didn't know how to throw the ball at all. And, I mean, this week he only had 7 incompletions on 38 attempts for 415 yards and 3 touchdowns. Stephon Diggs, he's just doing Stephon Diggs stuff. He leads the league in, I want to say, receptions and yards. I could be wrong. Yes, he leads the league in receptions and yards for receivers. And so he just seemed to kind of click with Stephon Diggs again, giving Stephon Diggs 118 yards. Didn't end up getting into the end zone, but I guess he didn't need to, because it seemed that a lot of other people on their team did. They had Zach Moss and Josh Allen both with rushing touchdowns, and then Gabriel Davis and Isaiah McKenzie and Tyler Kroft all with receiving touchdowns. So This Buffalo Bills offense just looked a little more in sync than they did last week, and it was the complete opposite for the Seahawks. I mean, they still put up 34, but like you said, 4 turnovers. It's hard to win a game. We saw that with Lamar Jackson the week before. He had 4 turnovers, and they barely lost. So I don't know. That was just very uncharacteristic from Russell Wilson, and hopefully we see better from them moving forward because I do like watching their offense a lot, but good for Josh Allen and getting his stuff together. So
Yeah, and another important thing to note, John Brown finally back. I mean, he's been struggling with injuries. I think he played the week before, but it wasn't 100%.
It wasn't. Yeah, no, it wasn't anywhere near what he's used to. And 99 receiving yards. So yeah, he had a pretty good week.
He had. I mean, there's 9 players on the Buffalo Bills team this weekend that all had a reception. So Josh Allen getting everybody involved, which obviously helped their offense.
Exactly. Yep. And then we move on to the next game. We have the Bears versus the Titans. This outcome didn't surprise me whatsoever. The only reason it surprised me, it was a little bit closer than I thought it was going to be. The Bears failed to score in the first 3 quarters. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that was pretty surprising to me. It seems like every week we think the Bears are going to play terrible, but they continue to eventually make games close. I don't think they've lost a game this year. They have 4 losses now. I don't think they've lost a game this year by more than 10 points.
Yeah.
They're playing everybody really close. Nick Foles is playing pretty well. And yeah, I mean, the Titans are just a good team. They're a hard team to beat, and they showed it this weekend. Derrick Henry's an absolute animal. Didn't have a great week this week on the ground, but just like having the defense focus on him so much opens up opportunities for A.J. Brown and these other Titans receivers. As we saw, A.J. Brown had like an 80-yard touchdown because Derrick Henry just draws so much attention in the middle of the field.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like you said, you have a player like that, and I feel like that comes with Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook, kind of one in the same, where no matter what you do on defense, you're more focused on the run than the pass against this team. And I know you have a player like A.J. Brown that I think he's had a touchdown in like the past like 5 or 6 games he's played. I want to say, I know he's injured for a while, but and I just feel like everyone kind of forgets about him because of how well Derrick Henry can control the clock because he's just hard to bring down.
Yeah.
And so you mix that with the inconsistent offensive play from the Bears, and I find it just hard to beat the Titans, especially if you're waiting until the 4th quarter to score, just like the Broncos did. They ended up putting up all 17 points in the 4th quarter. I don't know how many of those were garbage time, but still, it's pretty impressive. I mean, yeah, so they scored a touchdown with 5 minutes left, and then a touchdown with a minute left. So pretty much scoring in garbage time. They did get a field goal with 12 minutes left, but I mean, if you're going to start scoring touchdowns with 5 minutes left, it's hard to win a game after a team puts up 24 on you. So
yeah,
I think good play from the Titans, controlling the clock once again, as they do really well every week. I expected to see a couple more yards from Derrick Henry. 68 seems like a little low to him, but it seems like they just didn't really need to do much because the Bears weren't doing much either. I mean, Tannehill only threw the ball 21 times compared to Nick Foles throwing it for 52 times. So, I just think that the Bears need to start stronger because it was the same thing last week against the Saints. They didn't really score until late and then somehow brought it into overtime, but then couldn't finish it off. So, yeah.
Yeah, overall, just pretty much just a boring game. Not much to talk about here.
Yeah.
Just an absolute, blowout for most of the game.
Yeah, and then this next game, I feel bad because I've been trashing on Lamar Jackson. I mean, I know he didn't have a great game, but I thought he was going to be bad enough to make them lose. Baltimore versus Indianapolis.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, honestly, he still hasn't really impressed me this week. 19 for 23, so he's being efficient. 170 yards, but no touchdowns. Phillip Rivers, once again, had a decent amount of yards, 227, but he still threw an interception. So I thought that Lamar Jackson was going to not do much, which he didn't. And I thought Phillip Rivers was going to do a lot more than he did. He failed to throw a touchdown this game. And their only touchdown came from Jonathan Taylor running it in. This Colts offense just didn't look good at all this game. I mean, their leading rusher was Jordan Wilkins with 39 yards. No one even topped 40 yards. And Lamar Jackson also had 58 yards on the ground and a rushing touchdown. So it just seemed like Indianapolis hit a dud this week after scoring 41 against the Lions. So I was a little surprised by that. I don't know what you thought, but
Yeah, exactly. I mean, they put up 41 last week. They looked really, really good, and then they run into a pretty good Baltimore defense, one of the best in the league. And yeah, we saw what that ended up like. But in terms of Baltimore, we've talked about how they've been struggling this year a little bit. I mean, their record doesn't really show it. I believe they're 6-2 now. Yeah, 6-2. But like they're struggling to find like their number one running back, their number one receiver. They don't have the go-to guy other than Lamar Jackson, and it seems like Lamar Jackson just doesn't have their player or his guy that can kind of bail him out of games.
yeah.
That like a lot of other these good quarterbacks have.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I was actually intrigued to see how Des Bryant was going to do. Didn't even catch a pass. I don't really know his percentage of snaps in the game, but I thought bringing someone up with that caliber, well, I don't know how good he is anymore, but at least that experience, I thought he was going to make an impact on the game. One thing that is obviously not great, the Colts were 2 for 12 on third down. So, I mean, you're only completing 2 third downs the entire game. That's just never good for you, and they need to figure something out there. But on a team where your offense just looked lackadaisical the entire game, I wouldn't expect them to be really good on that third down efficiency. So that's all I had to say for that game. But
Yeah.
I did think the Colts were going to win, though. All right, and then the next game is the Carolina Panthers losing by 2 to the Kansas City Chiefs. I know you are going to brag about your pick on this one. Go
bit.
for it. Yeah, go for it.
So coming into this week, Carolina's record was 3-5, but they looked a lot better than their record showed. They'd also been missing Christian McCaffrey, who's arguably the best running back in the league, in my opinion, is. And finally he got back, and it showed to help them out a lot. And they played Kansas City pretty close. I expected this to be a close game. I actually expected Carolina to pull this out. Unfortunately, they did not. But yeah, I mean, you're running into a really, really good Kansas City Chiefs team that's been on fire for the last 2.5 years now. So there's not much you can do. But they played as well as they possibly could have. Teddy Bridgewater did really well, 36 for 49, 310 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. And then Christian McCaffrey obviously doing what Christian McCaffrey does. It seemed like every time I looked up, he had the ball in his hands.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of like going back to the Titans and the Vikings. I mentioned Derrick Henry and Dalvin Cook. I can't believe I forgot to mention Christian McCaffrey. He's not one of those power runners, but he breaks tackles. I don't get how he does it. He's like Alvin Kamara. He's like a smaller guy. He's just harder to tackle. And I mean, plays running back, but was second on the team in receiving yard.
Excuse me.
He plays running back, but was second on the team in reception yards and led the team in receptions. So like, it's obviously great to have someone that has that all-around skill back on the field for you, and it showed because Carolina actually had the lead in this game for a decent amount of time, and I thought you called it before the game, but watching it, I was like, there's no way that they actually pull this off, but it just seemed that the Chiefs had a hard time containing McCaffrey. I mean, he had 2 touchdowns, and it just was basically running that offense for the Panthers. One thing that is also hard to stop is Patrick Mahomes, and he had 4 touchdowns this week after throwing 5 touchdowns against the Jets, 372 yards. I feel bad that Teddy Bridgewater kind of got overshadowed by that performance because he had about 60 more yards than him and 4 more touchdowns, but Teddy Bridgewater also had an amazing game. One thing that bothered me, especially being a Clyde Edwards-Helaire fantasy owner, is that he led the team in rushing with 14 yards. I understand that they have, probably behind the Buccaneers, one of the most deadly receiving cores in the league. You could probably argue the Seahawks ahead of them, but I mean, you have Travis Kelce, 10 receptions, 159, Tyreek Hill, 9 receptions, 113, and McCole Hardman, 3 receptions for 48, and then it just goes down from there. But I don't know what they're going to do with their running backs because you have Clyde and Le'Veon, who are both really good, and you're only getting 14 yards out of Clyde and 8 yards out of Le'Veon. So, I mean, I guess they don't need it.
Yeah.
Because it's working for them. They're 8-1, but I don't know what their rushing scheme is going to look like going forward. But speaking of going forward, Christian McCaffrey also got injured, I think, on the last drive.
Yep.
Being considered day-to-day, so it's kind of sad to see how well the Panthers offense was clicking this week and that they might not have him back for this upcoming week unless, are they on a bye? I don't think so.
Chiefs are on, or sorry, Carolina or?
Carolina.
No, Carolina's not on a bye. The Chiefs are on a bye this week. But yeah, I mean, Patrick Mahomes with the weapons he has offensively, I mean, they're so hard to stop.
Yeah.
It was surprising to me, though, to see Kansas City let up 31 points. Their defense is another one of those teams defenses that's really, really good. And they're not used to letting up 31 points. But when you have an offense that can put up, 40 a game, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I mean, they were a top 5 defense before this week. And even after giving up 31, they only dropped to rank 7. So they still, great defense, like you were saying. But if the Panthers can get Christian McCaffrey back, I think that they can run away with this season. I mean, they probably won't win to the division with the Saints and the Buccaneers, but they'll definitely prove themselves to be a way better team than their record shows.
Another thing, sorry to interrupt you real quick. Another thing, when you were talking about the rushing attempts, for the first time, like all season, it seemed like the Chiefs fell down pretty early. They were down until like the midway through the third quarter, I think, maybe even the fourth quarter. And so that's, I think, why Clyde's and
but you look at the week before.
Attempts.
You look at the week before. Mahomes threw for 5 touchdowns and got benched, and still Clyde. I mean, he didn't really do much.
Yeah.
I mean, he had a decent amount of yards, but he wasn't like 15 attempts or anything like that.
Right. It seems like they're steering away from that initial plan of using a running back a lot more this year with that using a first-round draft pick on him, or first pick of the second round, I believe it was.
Yeah.
Or last pick of the first round. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah, it seems like they're steering away from that and throwing the ball like they used to.
Yeah. I mean, it's working, so I'm not gonna hate on it. It was just weird to see, especially right after signing Le'Veon. But getting into the next game, we have the Vikings versus the Lions. I don't remember who you called for this game, but I did call the Vikings.
I did as well.
This is one of the very few games this week that I actually got correct. Also, Matthew Stafford did exit the game. I forgot in which quarter, if it was third or fourth, but he did leave the game. So that brought Chase Daniel in. Kirk Cousins, pretty good game. 13 for 20. Didn't throw the ball a lot, but still 220 yards and 3 touchdowns. And while Matthew Stafford threw for 2 interceptions and Chase Daniel threw for 1 as well. So that's 3 total interceptions from your quarterbacks. And then DeAndre Swift had a fumble, but I believe it was recovered by the Lions. So I don't think that would count as a takeaway. What do you think about this game?
Yeah, with this game, we see another impressive week from Dalvin Cook. I think every game he's played this week, he's put up almost 100 yards and a touchdown, I think, in 5 or 6 of those games. But this week, 22 carries for 206 yards with 2 touchdowns with a 70-yard run. Just submitting himself as one of the top 5 running backs in the league.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, for me being an Adam Thielen owner, Adam Thielen's not getting any of the work that he used to get.
No, not at all.
And it's pretty disappointing to see. But Justin Jefferson, I don't know if he's necessarily like negatively impacting Thielen's production, but Justin Jefferson still looks good. He only had 3 receptions for 64 yards, but he looks good out there. And he's definitely opening it up the running game for Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, you mentioned how well Dalvin Cook is doing since week 3. When it comes to just rushing yards alone, he's had 181, 130, 65. Didn't play against Atlanta. Had a bye week. 163, 206. So he's only had 1 game since week 3 under 100 yards, and still then he had 5 receptions for 24 yards. I mean, these past 2 weeks, he had 63 yards, mostly coming off that screen, and then 46 yards receiving last week against Detroit. So he's obviously carrying that offense, and he's getting receiving and rushing touchdowns at the same time. Amir Abdullah and Irv Smith ran the show when it came to receiving touchdowns this week. Irv Smith had 2 and Amir Abdullah had 1. Neither of those guys are their top receivers. I feel like it's, you could argue Justin Jefferson might be their number one and Adam Thielen's their number two now. I mean, looking at production from this year, but I don't know. It's just an offense that is run by running the ball, and Dalvin Cook has proved that no one can stop him yet, and I don't think anyone will. And until someone does, I think that their plan is just going to be to hand Cook the ball and let him work.
Yeah, speaking of running the ball, on the Lions side, DeAndre Swift had 13 carries, Kerryon Johnson 4 carries, and Adrian Peterson had 8 carries. It seems like they still can't find out who's their number one guy in the backfield. I don't know what they're doing with Adrian Peterson, as seems like he's about to turn 60 years old. But DeAndre Swift hasn't taken the role that we expected him to at this point. He is a rookie, but yeah, he's shown his talent, and they're not giving him the work that I think he deserves.
No, I mean he's getting significantly more yards than the other running backs. I feel like Adrian Peterson they're trying to use for like short yardage stuff, but still I think you need to move past Adrian Peterson. I love the guy and I love watching him play when I was growing up, but I mean, come on.
Same with the Jets and Frank Gore.
He's turning into Frank Gore, yeah. It's like worry about your rookies and your younger guys because DeAndre Swift is a real talent, and I feel like you're just taking so much stuff away from him when you're giving Adrian Peterson 8 carries a game for him to average 3.5 yards a carry, which isn't terrible, but you got DeAndre Swift averaging 5 last week. And he's obviously a better back than Adrian Peterson right now, not ever, obviously, but yeah, and then we'll see what happens with Matthew Stafford, but if he's not back and they can't figure out their running back situation, I feel like it's not going to be good for the Lions moving forward.
Yeah. Another thing is Matthew Stafford continues to struggle with the absence of Kenny Golladay. I'm not exactly sure what Kenny Galladay's injury status is at this point, but he's been hurt almost the entire year, and it's showing. Danny Amendola and Marvin Jones Jr. taking most of the work on the receiving end. Yeah, they're definitely missing Kenny Golladay, as he is definitely the number one on that team.
Yeah, and I know he has a hip injury, and coming in this week, he was, I think, declared day-to-day, and I don't know what that means for him coming up, but I honestly doubted that he was ever going to play this week because after having Kenny Golladay in fantasy for pretty much every year since he's been in the league, every time he's questionable, he never plays, it feels like. And so I don't know what that means coming up for their next game. But one person that I think has stepped up in the receiving game is TJ Hawkinson. Yeah. Maybe not when it comes to yards, but he has 5 touchdowns on the year. And so, in his past 5 games, he has 4 touchdowns. He just couldn't reel in a touchdown against Indianapolis in week 8, but he still had 7 for 65. So maybe while he's not that deep threat that Kenny Golladay is, he's still a very good red zone threat, and he's proving that with his amazing touchdown percentage this year. And so if he can continue to improve on the receiving side while you get Kenny Golladay back, I think the Detroit Lions have a pretty solid offense. They just have to figure out who to give the ball to when it comes to running the ball.
Yeah.
The next game that we have is the Giants versus the Washington football team. What do you think about this game?
I predict this one as well. I had the Giants winning this game. I think the Giants are a lot better than their record shows. The Giants' defense is finally getting a lot better. Last year they weren't that good, but this year they've shown to be a pretty good defensive team. Offensively, they're still struggling a little bit with the absence of Saquon Barkley with the torn ACL. They're having to resort to Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris, which is not nearly the talent level of Saquon. But they're doing all right. They're getting the job done. This was a big win for them. They're obviously in a terrible division. They're all fighting for a playoff spot. So this win over Washington was a really good win for them.
Yeah, and something you mentioned the Giants' defense, which I really don't know how they managed to only win by 3 because Washington had 5 turnovers and the Giants had 0. So I didn't think that was going to be the case when it came to turn. I knew the Giants had a decent defense, and I thought that they were going to do well, but I didn't think that the turnover ratio was going to be that big of a ratio. I mean, you have Alex Smith throwing 3 interceptions, and so I feel bad for him because he came in for Kyle Allen. I think he had a dislocated ankle. I don't know how long he's out, but if Alex Smith is going to continue to be the starting quarterback for the Washington football team, then you can't throw 3 interceptions. Daniel Jones had a pretty decent game, 212 yards and a touchdown. Like he said, Wayne Gallman and Alfred Morris actually didn't do bad. They had 14 carries and 9 carries, and both basically one had 68, one had 67 yards. So definitely better than that Washington duo of a backfield with Antonio Gibson and J.D. McKissick. They had 6 for 20 and 3 for 17, although Antonio Gibson was able to get into the end zone. One person that did impress me, who I do have on my fantasy team, is Terry McLaurin. I don't know if you saw that touchdown.
Yes, I did.
It was pretty crazy. Alex Smith's first touchdown after coming back, but I think they have some real talent in Terry McLaurin, and he's really fun to watch. But yeah, kind of like the Lions, I feel like. I think Washington just needs to get a solid running back or choose on one. And obviously you're dealing with Dwayne Haskins and Kyle Allen. And so then you have to put in Alex Smith. I feel like once you're cycling through those guys, it's just also hard once you can't choose a quarterback. This surprised me because Daniel Jones has been a really big turnover monster for the Giants, but he was able to not have any this week, thankfully, and I think that's one thing that finally helped them get a win because I think coming into this week he was second when it comes to quarterbacks and turnovers, and so
the thing that helped them out the most, I think, was getting an early lead. I think they were up 20-0 or 20-3 going into halftime.
Yeah.
So the pressure was off him. You know, usually they're playing from behind. He's forced to make some throws.
Yeah.
It also helps the Washington defense. As good as they are, they're not the defenses that the Giants have been facing so far this year. And so he had a little bit more time in the pocket to make his decisions. Throwing the ball to Sterling Shepard and Evan Ingram was actually the best options he could, or the best decisions he made, because Sterling Shepard had 6 for 40. Which isn't great, but Sterling Shepard, now that he's back, is looking pretty good. Evan Ingram actually had an amazing touchdown catch. I don't know if you happen to see that, but yeah, Evan Ingram 5 for 50 with a touchdown, and then Austin Mack as well, 4 for 72 with a 50-yard catch.
Yeah, this is actually Evan Ingram's first receiving touchdown on the year. He had a rushing touchdown back in Week 5 against Dallas, so it was good to see him finally get into the end zone when it comes to receptions. But yeah, no, I think that's all there is to say. I mean, I expected the Giants to win this one, so did you. Their only win before this came against Washington, so it just seems like the Giants have they just have the Washington football team's number when it comes to playing within the division, and they got the sweep on them this year. So looking forward on the Giants, I don't know how well they're going to do. Neither of these teams are good teams, really. Both starting quarterbacks on these teams obviously having turnover trouble on the year, and so I just don't think either of these teams are going to be very successful moving forward.
All right, and the next game that we're going into is the Houston Texans versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. What are your thoughts on this game?
Yeah, this is a pretty good win for the Texans. Coming into this game 1-6, I know they played some tough teams. They started off, I think, playing the Chiefs, the Steelers, and the Ravens, which is just tough matchups. I think their record doesn't reflect how good they actually are. I'm not saying that they're any sort of title contender or anything like that, but they are better than 2-6.
I have like one of the hardest schedules, so.
Yeah, they are 2-6, but I don't think they're that bad. Deshaun Watson, pretty average Deshaun Watson game. He had 19 for 32. 281 yards and 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. So not bad at all. What hurt them, I think, was David Johnson getting injured in the first quarter with a concussion. So Duke Johnson filled in with 16 carries for 41 yards, pretty lackluster. But he did get a touchdown. And then Brandon Cooks and Will Fuller with 2 big games. Both of them had, I think, over 50-yard reception touchdowns. Will Fuller 5 for 100, and then Brandon Cooks 3 for 83. I think this is Will Fuller's 6th game in a row with a touchdown.
Yeah, let's see. He has had a touchdown every week since week 3, so yeah.
Yeah, so 6 games in a row with a touchdown. He's, with the absence of DeAndre Hopkins as he got shipped off to the Cardinals, Will Fuller has emerged as a really solid wide receiver 1 for them. And Brandon Cooks, obviously, after the trade or after the free agent signing from the Rams, it was a trade, sorry. Brandon Cooks has done really well for them as well.
Yeah, I agree. And actually, I was pretty surprised with Jake Luton. He had a really good game. I mean, he had an interception, but other than that, he had 304 yards and a touchdown. Had a pretty early touchdown to DJ Chark, I believe. I think that was it was
first quarter,
first
70
quarter,
yards.
yeah, right after Brandon Cook's touchdown or right before. They came like back to back, I know. So DJ Chark obviously having a good connection with Jake Luton he had 7 for 146 and a touchdown. So that kind of makes me question is Jake Luton gonna lead this team? Because I know they lost, but they lost by 2, and so with the absence of Gardner Minshew, I didn't expect Jake Luton to come in and even throw for 150 probably, but he threw for 300. And then you had James Robinson, 25 carries for 99 yards and a touchdown too. And Jake Luton also had a rushing touchdown. So this offense actually was pretty promising, and they seem to be doing really well. It is just at the very they couldn't make it happen at the very end of the game, even though they held Houston scoreless in the fourth quarter. Also, the Jaguars had 4 penalties for 78 yards compared to the 18 total yards that the Texans had. So that's obviously going to be one pretty big difference if you're looking at yardage gain down the field.
Yeah.
Giving the Texans those 78 free yards, that can change the game at any moment. Anything else you thought from this game?
Yeah, just basically the Jacksonville secondary looked terrible this game.
Yeah.
Got burned, obviously, like we mentioned earlier, by Fuller and Cooks. They no longer have Jalen Ramsey, so they can't shadow with him and lock down any receivers. But yeah, they're paying the price for it, and they're giving up big plays. And if they're giving up big plays, and they're getting penalties all the time, and it's hard to stop teams when you're doing that. So
yeah,
hopefully they get back on track.
Yeah, hopefully once their defense gets back on track, I think. Depending on if they put Gardner in or not, I think he's supposed to be out this next week too. I could be wrong. Depending on whether you put him in or not, just seeing if your offense can continue to stay at this caliber, you're going to start winning games. Because, I mean, you have basically a 100-yard rusher and a 150-yard receiver, both scoring touchdowns while your quarterback is throwing for 304 total yards. So that's just those are all crazy stat lines when it comes to the offensive side of the ball, but their defense definitely needs to get their stuff together if they're going to plan on winning any more than one game, I feel like.
Yeah, so let's go to the Las Vegas versus the Chargers game from Sunday. Las Vegas ended up winning this game 31-26. It was a close game. Chargers unfortunately lose another one. I'm sorry, Chargers fans. It seems like y'all's luck is about as bad as it can get, and it continues to be that way. So y'all fall to 2-6 while the Raiders are 5-3. Last play of the game,
Had a chance.
Yeah, they had a chance. They had a chance at it. They threw the corner end zone route to Mike Williams. Unfortunately, got hurt, couldn't reel it in, but it was that close. And but yeah, they fell short.
Yeah, no, I mean, I talked about this in the preview and kind of like the recap. I think their past 4 games before this one, they had a 16-point lead, and they did win one of them, but they blew the lead at some point. And so just another heartbreak. It's not just another loss. It's another heartbreaking loss for the Chargers. When you're getting that close, and I know they weren't ahead at the end of this game at least, but at least getting that opportunity, I think they were on the 5 and then the 1-yard line, just couldn't get it in on the final play, and then losing on the final play of the game before that against the Broncos. It's like, I thought maybe it was bad luck, but I feel like it's like they're just not good. I want to say, like, they're getting there.
Just can't finish.
Yeah, and I mean, Justin Herbert made a really strong case for offensive rookie of the year. Him and Joe Burrow are probably going to battle that one out, but I mean, 326 for 2 touchdowns. He's just absolutely killing the game. Keenan Allen had a monster game, 103 yards and a touchdown. Once again, very spread out backfield when it comes to the Chargers with Austin Eckler being out.
Yeah, Justin Jackson, who had been taking over the running back 1 role on that offense, got hurt first play of the game. So Joshua Kelly and Kalen Ballage stepped in and did a pretty fine job. Kalen Ballage, 15 carries for 70 yards and a touchdown. Joshua Kelly, 9 carries for only 28 yards. which isn't great. Kalen Ballage, throughout the second half, ended up taking almost all of the workloads for the runners. On the receiving end, Keenan Allen, another great game from him as we expected, 9 for 103 and a touchdown on 11 targets. And then Mike Williams, 5 for 81, which was good to see again. Mike Williams has put together 3 good weeks in a row. And as talented as he is, I've been waiting for Mike Williams to be getting the work that he is finally getting. So it is really good to see.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at the stat sheet, at least on paper, I feel like the Chargers should have won this game. They had more first downs, 120 more yards than the Raiders. They each had 1 turnover, so no real big difference there. And they had almost 10 more minutes of possession. It's just, once again, getting so down to the wire, not being able to finish the game. It's just, I honestly, like I said last week, no advice for the Chargers. I don't know what they need to do differently other than just finish the games. I mean, that's just about it. It's tough to watch if you're a Chargers fan, which gladly I am not. And so I feel bad for them as a team, and I don't think the Raiders deserve to win this one. I know they did beat the Chiefs that one week, but I think the Raiders, if you look at the record, are a very overhyped team. I don't think that they produce really well in any aspect of anything. Mm-hmm. And so I thought the Chargers definitely deserved to win this one, but couldn't pull it out at the end. So, and then the next game, we go to another shocker, not on the outcome, but it was a little closer than I thought it should be. It was the Steelers and the Cowboys.
This game was absolutely terrible to watch. The Steelers looked terrible after coming off 8 straight weeks of looking amazing. They played a terrible Dallas Cowboys team who was 2-7 or 2-6 coming into this game. It was all beat up. They have Garrett Gilbert, their third string quarterback, who started this game, who didn't actually do bad. He looked way better than both Andy Dalton and DiNucci, that's right. DiNucci. Yeah, he looked way better than them. He had 243 yards and a touchdown. He only had 1 interception, and he only got sacked twice. Coming into this game, I thought the Steelers' defense was going to get to the quarterback almost every play, but for some reason, it looked like Garrett Gilbert was able to flood the pocket and make things happen. So that was good for him.
Yeah, and one thing, I know Ben Roethlisberger got injured. It wasn't for too long. Still managed to throw for 306 and 3 touchdowns. But the running game, when it came to the Steelers team, looked absolutely horrendous. I mean, your leading rusher was James Conner with 22 yards. They gave 6 different guys a chance to run the ball. I know some of those were receivers on like reverses and stuff, so I don't know if you would consider that a lot of like rushing attempts, but James Conner, 9 for 22, averaging 2.4. I mean, that's terrible for your lead back, especially someone as skilled as James Conner. Juju had a late touchdown, and Eric Ebron found the end zone again. I feel like he's been a very lethal red zone target. It was just, I don't know, like you said, it was just really hard to watch. The Cowboys nor the Steelers looked really great. If I saw that game and that was the first game I would have watched all year, I would have probably assumed that they were both a 2-win team going into it. The Steelers didn't look like an undefeated team, but they were still able to come out with the win. And so, I don't know, I think that they'll look better going forward, but I don't know how they played the Cowboys so close, because the Cowboys did have a chance, and I thought that maybe they were going to get out of there with a win, especially after I saw CeeDee Lamb's amazing catch on the sideline. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
I thought maybe they had the momentum, but also you're looking at Garrett Gilbert, a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience in the league, and going against the best defense in the league, at least at that point. I don't think that you can put him up there anymore after letting up 19 to the Cowboys. But you got Garrett Gilbert going against the best defense in the league at the time, and I feel like it's just hard for him to be able to do anything with the offense, especially one like the Cowboys. So.
Yeah. In terms of pass protect, the offensive line actually looked really good for the Dallas Cowboys this weekend. Mm-hmm. But once again, the running game, they just can't get going. Yeah. Zeke only had 18 carries, but only for 51 yards. Tony Pollard actually outrushed him with only 9 carries. He had 57 yards. So yeah, once again, a terrible week on the ground for Dallas. On the receiving end, CeeDee Lamb had 4 receptions for 71 yards, and then Amari Cooper led the team in receptions with 5 for 67 yards. On Pittsburgh, Juju Smith with 6 for 93, Deontay Johnson 6 for 77, and then Chase Claypool 8 for 69. Yeah. So it looks like Juju is getting back into the swing of things. I know that Deontay Johnson and Chase Claypool have been taking most of the work this year coming into this game, but Juju had a good game and a huge touchdown for the Steelers after they were down early. So yeah, that was a big key to success for the Steelers pulling this game away.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And like I said earlier, this is Eric Ebron's second straight week with a touchdown, so maybe they're trying to look at him more in the red zone. I thought Chase Claypool was going to be a really big hit, especially after his 110-yard game in Philadelphia. But he got 74 the week after, but then had -2 receiving yards the week after that in Tennessee. So I feel like he's just been a very hit or miss receiver. He's definitely a really good rookie, but failed to find the end zone this week. I don't think that's anything necessarily wrong with him. I think that they're just starting to look more towards Eric Ebron when it comes to being closer to the end zone. But yeah, no, I think that both teams have a lot to figure out when it comes to running the ball, because James Conner nor Zeke looked really good in this game. And I don't know what's wrong with Zeke. I know he's nursing a hamstring injury, so maybe you could blame it on that. But I think if you say that you're ready to play and they give you 18 carries, you got to do more than average 2.8 per carry, or else you're not proving yourself to be an elite running back in this league. Even though I personally think he is, he's not showing it right now.
Yeah, it was really cool to see Mike McCarthy coming into this game with some tricks up his sleeve. They had a punt return. They threw it across the field and he ran for like 70 yards. 30 of those yards came back after a penalty, but it was really cool. And then they also had a fake punt, I believe, and they threw it for a first down.
Yeah.
So coming into this game, McCarthy knew that it was going to be a tough one, and he planned for it. So that was really cool.
Yeah, I thought it was some good coaching by McCarthy, but like I said, you can't coach for your star running back to average 2.8 on offense. So other than that, I thought it was a really terrible game to watch, and I really hope that the Steelers look a lot better going forward, because I do enjoy watching them as a team. But speaking of other teams that I enjoy watching, I do like watching the Arizona Cardinals, just not when they're losing to the Miami Dolphins. What do you think about this game? This one surprised me.
Yeah, this was a little surprising. Miami coming off a big win against the Rams, but I didn't expect them to do it again. They had another big win against the Cardinals this weekend. 34-31 was the final. It was close all the way through. But yeah, Miami ended up pulling it out. Tua ended up with 248 yards and 2 touchdowns. This is his second win. He's now 2-0 as a starter. And then Kyler Murray, who had another great game as we expected, had 283 yards, 3 touchdowns, no interceptions. So both quarterbacks played really, really well. It was a very offensive game, and it was really fun to watch.
Yeah, I agree. And you said it was an offensive game. Last week, I feel bad because I said I don't think Tua can get a win unless his defense carried him. I mean, the Cardinals only had 1 turnover, and he still threw for near 250. And so I think Tua proved that even though Fitzpatrick was having a really great year, I think Tua proved that they have their franchise quarterback in him in this game. And I mean, he led the team down at the very end of the game to get the game tying and game winning scores. So he proved he has that poise of a very veteran quarterback, also while having the legs of a rookie that is very mobile. I mean, he had 35 yards rushing on 7 carries, and so he's going to be one of those Kyler Murray type quarterbacks where he can escape pressure really well, and he showed that on one of the last drives. I mean, I know Kyler Murray had 106 yards rushing, which is absolutely bonkers for a quarterback, but I got to hand it to Tua. He was able to get the job done, especially in the clutch against a really good Cardinals team that beat the Seahawks. So I thought the Cardinals had this one in the bag, but, Tua proved me wrong, and so it was good to see the young guy putting in that work. Anything else from this game?
Yeah, for me, I think it was pretty surprising to see DeAndre Hopkins only have 3 receptions on 3 targets. Mm-hmm. Being the talent that he is, you would expect him to get more looks, especially in a close game like this one.
Yeah.
But Christian Kirk actually led the Cardinals in receptions as well as targets. 5 receptions on 8 targets for 123 yards and a touchdown. Christian Kirk has emerged as one of the better receivers in the league now, at least in deep threats. He's getting like over 100 yards over the past 3 weeks in a row.
Mm-hmm.
Most of those coming on just like 1 or 2 big plays. But like, hey, that's all it takes. We see that with like Tyreek Hill and
Will Fuller.
Yeah, Will Fuller.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's getting the job done week in and week out. On Miami's end, Devontae Parker led the team in targets and receptions, 6 for 7, 6 receptions on 7 yards, 64 yards, and then Preston Williams 4 for 60. He ended up getting hurt, but he looked really well. He looked really good out there before he got hurt.
Yeah, no, and like you said, watching DeAndre Hopkins only get 3 receptions, I feel like you just got to run your offense through him because they've done that before and they've gotten wins because of it. It seemed like they tried to go more through Chase Edmonds this week after the injury to Kenyon Drake. I mean, he had 25 carries. I don't want to say only 70 yards rushing, but I feel like
on 25 carries, you expect at least
a little more.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I guess it's a little different when your quarterback is also getting 106 rushing yards. Maybe there's a little pressure taken off Chase Edmonds, but it seemed like that was the route that they were taking, and I think that the Cardinals should definitely be a pass-first kind of team, especially when you got Christian Kirk, DeAndre Hopkins, and arguably one of the best receivers ever in Larry Fitzgerald. And so I think that they just tried something new this week after witnessing Kenyon Drake getting injured, and I don't think it worked out for him. I mean, it didn't work poorly because they still put up 31, but they weren't able to get the win. And so I think they have to be a pass-first team and kind of go through DeAndre Hopkins a little more because 3 receptions for, you could say, depending on your opinion, I feel like the best receiver in the league. That's really low, especially only 30 yards. So, I mean, you got to take what the defense gives you, but at the same time, you can always just throw it up to D-Hop and watch him make some magic.
Yeah. Last thing before we move on, is it too soon to say that Kyler Murray is a better dual threat quarterback than Lamar Jackson is for this year?
Dude, I think so. I mean,
you think it's too early? You don't think so?
No. I think. Sorry, yeah, that was confusing.
Sorry about that.
No, you're good. I don't know. I mean, I've been saying it. I don't think that Lamar Jackson has been proving himself recently. On the year, Kyler Murray 2,130 yards, Lamar Jackson 1,513 yards. So, I mean, he's obviously doing a little better in the passing categories. I don't know their rushing stats off the top of my head, but I would feel that they're a little similar. I know that Kyler Murray has more yards and touchdowns, and then I think less turnovers because especially Lamar had that 1 turnover week. But as of now, this year, I would say yes, Kyler Murray is proving himself to be a better dual threat quarterback than Lamar Jackson. I don't want to say ever because Lamar Jackson had some crazy stats the past couple of years. But I mean, you in this game alone, I mean, you put up 283 in the air, 106 on the ground, and 4 total touchdowns. That's about as dual threat as you can get.
Yeah.
And so watching him play is really fun. I like the way he runs the ball. Looks like a little mouse out there, just dodging all the defenders. And so I would say as of now, yes, he is better than Lamar Jackson in my opinion. But it's a long season. There's a lot of football to be played. So I guess we'll see if he can keep up that level of play. Speaking of keeping up level of play, the Saints definitely upped their level of play in this past game against the Buccaneers. I picked the Buccaneers to win, and I'm a Saints fan. So this was definitely really surprising to me. I mean, what do you think about the game?
Yeah, so the Saints go into Tampa this weekend. Saints ended up winning 38-3. The game was over after the first quarter. You could see the defeat in the Buccaneers' faces. It seemed like Drew Brees had a little bit of extra incentive playing against his, I wouldn't say rival, but playing against his
I mean, someone you get compared to a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
Playing against Tom Brady, and he showed some Drew Brees talent this weekend that we've been missing so far this year. He had 222 yards with 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, and only 1 sack. So the entire Saints team, defensively and offensively, looked amazing. It looked like title contenders this weekend.
They did.
They're 6-2 now. Tampa's 6-3. That was a huge win for the Saints, being that they're in the same division as the Buccaneers. But yeah, it was a great win. On the Buccaneers side, not much to talk about. They looked terrible. Tom Brady had 209 yards, 3 interceptions, no touchdowns. They only rushed for 8 yards total as a team.
Yeah.
I think they only had like 5 rushing attempts
I think there was like the least amount of attempts in a football game when it comes to rushing. It was some record. I forgot how long, but they set a record for the least rushing attempts in a game. And so I think, it was just a bad offensive performance overall by the Buccaneers. One thing that was exciting for me to see as a Saints fan was Sean Payton was pulling some stuff out of his sleeve, just random tricks. And you usually see Taysom Hill coming in on like a 3rd and short just to get that like little push for a first down. There were drives where Taysom Hill was doing read options with Alvin Kamara the whole way down because the Buccaneers couldn't stop it. And so, like you said, they looked like title contenders. It just seemed like they couldn't get stopped, and they couldn't stop stopping the Buccaneers. It was really encouraging to see that their defense actually coming together. And you saw something that doesn't happen a lot was Tom Brady getting really flustered, and he started making some just ill-advised passes. I know at one point he just kind of started throwing it up to AB, and it led to I think his 2nd or 3rd interception. The first one got batted down by a defensive lineman, so not much you can do about that. But this was definitely a surprising game, and if the Saints keep playing like this, I feel like they're going to prove themselves to be title contenders, especially after having a 30% chance to win the division. I think now they have like a 72% chance, I want to say. That could be wrong, but it's either upper 60s or lower 70s. So on pace to win the division, hopefully. And so, it was just, overall for me, I'm biased, but it was a fun game to watch.
Yeah, it was really surprising. It was a much anticipated game. Antonio Brown makes his return to the NFL. Mm-hmm. He only had 3 catches for 31 yards. We did have 5 targets. And Michael Thomas, another one who made his return after sitting out the entire year, dealing with injuries and a little bit of team problems and stuff like that. But he makes his return. He only had 5 catches for 51 yards after coming off the historic season he did last year.
Yeah.
They didn't need him very much.
Mm-hmm.
I'm assuming if they were down, they would have used him a little bit more. Michael Thomas and Antonio Brown back into the mix.
Also, Chris Godwin, I know he wasn't out as long as Michael Thomas, but he missed week 8. Chris Godwin coming back, only 3 receptions for 41 yards. So I don't know what happened to Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. I know he's never had a receiving core as strong as this one. Like I said, you could argue that they're the best in the league when it comes. You have Mike Evans, Godwin, Antonio Brown, and Gronk. And it just seemed like he was throwing to a bunch of high schoolers. Like nothing was clicking at all.
And they were getting to him fast too. The Saints defensive line was busting through the Bucs offensive line, which hasn't happened this year for the Buccaneers.
No.
Hasn't happened much this year at all for the Buccaneers.
No, 3 sacks I feel like doesn't tell the whole story, because watching the game it just looked like Tom Brady was getting beaten up the entire time, or hurried at least a lot, and
forced him into a intentional grounding, which I haven't seen Tom Brady do, I don't think, ever.
No, he's usually a lot smarter than he'll do. Like Drew Brees does it a lot as well. He'll just throw it like at the back of the running back's feet, stuff like that. But like I said, you could obviously see him getting flustered, a little frustrated with the way his offense was playing. And I think it just led to a lot of mistakes that are not Tom Brady mistakes. And so, that's all I have to say. It was a little weird of a game. It was a weird game. I didn't expect it, but I'm happy that it happened. I'm not going to lie. And so I think that the Bucs, you give them some time with Antonio Brown on the practice field, I feel like they'll find their groove. But this is not a game where they found their groove. It's the complete opposite.
Yeah.
So that's all I got for the game. You got anything else?
No, that's about it.
All right, guys. Well, thank you for tuning in. Come back tomorrow for our No Cap recap. Drew, Jake, and Jacob will be doing it, I believe. If not, then it'll be Drew and Jake when it comes to the college football games. But before you leave, don't forget to follow us on Twitter, TikTok, and hit that subscribe button. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Peace.